Hi everyone, Alecia McGill here with Math Labs. Today we are in the 6th grade book, which is in Ratio and Proportional Relationships. That's Unit 2 of 5. This corresponds with Common Core Content Standard 6.RP.2 and also .3, which basically are unit rates, and then using a visual model to solve unit rates. This is Math Lab 2.1, and let's start right away. So open up your Math Lab book to Lab 2.1, and please read the objective in your head as I read it aloud. I can solve problems involving unit rates using a visual model known as a tape diagram or bar model. Okay, so today we really are focusing on mathematical practice number 4, but also 2, 3, and 7. But 4 because we're looking at a specific bar model. Okay, remember we've used the bar model before. We've used it in 5th grade and 4th grade. It's very popular. It started in Singapore, not necessarily started, but became very popular there. And it's really good to help kids move from the basically concrete to the abstract, especially with algebraic concepts, which we'll be using. But just any concept involving division, addition, subtraction, multiplication, you name it. All right, let's talk about unit rate. I heard that in the objective. Remember, a unit rate is a comparison, so a rate or ratio with a denominator of 1. So when we talk about that, we mean per one something, right? It could be per 1 hour, per 1 pound. It doesn't have to be necessarily per. It could be in one, so in one circle. That's not per, you can think of it as per 1 circle, but it's not necessarily time always, like per 1 day, per 1 hour. But essentially, per hour, we know that means 1, and per pound, we know that means 1 pound, okay? All right, so let's start with the scenario here. Amy, and I'm going to just do the first one and model that for you. Amy earned $42 in 6 hours. What is her rate in dollars per hour? Okay. Whether they said unit rate or not, we're going to take the information, which is Amy making $42, and she's doing this in 6 hours. All right, and so we're going to use this information to make a bar model or a tape diagram. So we start by making our bar, okay? Or we'll look at it afterwards and see how it reminds us of like tape, like tapeworm, and here we have this piece of tape. So, okay, we have $42. That's the total here. So we have $42. That can be represented by this entire bar. And I'm going to be honest with you. For me, I have this thing about putting it at the end. I understand this helps too. But I also write it here. So $42, and I'll tell you why later. You'll see why. In 6 hours. So I have this here, 6 hours, all right? But essentially, this whole same bar can be thought about $42 being the whole, but in 6 hours. So what we have to do is divide this into 6 units, okay? So we have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars here to make 6 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. Our job to figure out the unit rate. So what is it in 1 hour? We know that altogether 6 hours is $42. And so you might have strategies as to figure out what it is for each unit. So go ahead and do that now. Time's up. So basically, I'm going to put the book down. I love the Math Labs book. I really, really do. But all right, need my hands free. So we have $42, and we have it in 6 hours here. So we have to think about how maybe like 3 of these, is 21. So that's half, right? 21 and 21 is 42. So I just want you to think about other equivalent, proportional, and we're going to talk about what that means very soon, parts of this total $42. Okay, some other quantities that we can talk about here. All right, and quantify. So if I have 21 for these 3 parts, then maybe it's easier for me to think about what each part is here. And so that's why I use that number 21. If you're sharp, then you didn't even need to think about that. You can think about what it is per one. But if you thought about it in 3 being 21, half of that amount, 21 and 21 being 42, then you would see that this is 7, 7, and 7. Do we all agree that 21 here divided into these 3 parts is 7? So I'm just going to write, oh, that's $7 for every unit. So she makes $7 per hour. That's her unit rate. So we're going to write our answer statement here. Amy earns $7 per hour. Period. Okay? So basically, we use this tape diagram, this bar model, to think about how the whole $42 can be, in a sense, segmented here into 6 hours and what each would represent. This is just a good visual model. I know that we can solve this problem in one step. I get it. But if we practice this visual model, then when we get to the more abstract ideas and we use a bar model, it's all going to make sense. It's all going to click. And we'll be able to look at quantities that are double or triple or 7 less or fewer. And we'll be able to use this bar model to help us learn algebraic concepts. And so we don't want to dismiss it, but yet we want to embrace it. And look at the beauty in the bar model. It's gorgeous. But once we get going and we do this for a day with bar models, then we don't need it anymore. That's the idea. We practice with it so that we can have a visual in our heads and we can really have a sense of quantity and the numbers, okay? All right, let's look at the next example. This is where you're going to get to pause on your computer or device or however you're watching me. And then obviously resume and then look at the answer and check to see if you are correct. All right, so this next scenario is Marvin paid $10 for 4 pounds of steak. What is his price per pound? So what did he pay per pound? So the important information that I'm going to extract here, take out, is the fact that he paid $10. I know that. And that was for $10 for 4 pounds, okay? LBS is the abbreviation for pounds, okay? But we knew that. We're smart. Smarticles. So I'm going to draw my bar model that, it's Marvin, right? Yes, Marvin paid. Sometimes I forget the names because I make these problems up sometimes as I go, or names. And so I believe it was Marvin. Short-term memory loss. This whole quantity here represents this $10, or this $10 represents this whole bar. So I'm going to go ahead, money is green. I'm doing this here on top because I want to find out the price per pound. And so I'm going to put the pounds here at the bottom, LBS. All right, so this whole $10 is basically represented by this bar. You can make a really squiggly one if we want here. And how many pounds do we have? Well, we have 4. So this whole bottom part, which we're going to use the pink for, magenta, whatever. This whole bottom part is 4 pounds. So we need to divide this into 4 units here. And we need to figure out what each unit is. Because once we figure out the unit, we have the unit rate. And you see how the visual helps you later remember. So when you see unit rate, you're going to have this visual in your head and you're going to go, oh, that's what it is per unit. We've been working with units with bar models. I get it. I understand it. So this would be a good thing for you and for your mind. So look at this. We have $10. The thing is that we're sharing it here among 4 units to figure out what it is per pound. So we have 4 pounds here. Well, you might already know the answer, but some of you might be thinking, well, I know that these two are 5, right? Because 5 plus 5 is $10. And so if these two are 5, I can do some simple arithmetic and saying, well, 5 divided by 2 is $2.50, right? Or $2.50 plus $2.50 is 5. Okay? But I like to think of it as, let's reinforce division. $5 divided by 2. So these 2 parts. And we have $2.50 in each. So that is indeed the unit cost or the unit price of these steaks. Hopefully they're yummy steaks. So Jack, just kidding, his name was Marvin. Or was it Melvin? Marvin. Marvin paid, how much did he pay? $2.50 per what? Per pound. I'm going to go ahead and write that out because it's part of my complete sentence. All right, and so we have our answer statement here. We made sure we answered the question. We have a visual model to prove, because I'm going to be honest, a lot of times what I've seen in the past is that kids forget and they don't use this visual model and they pull the numbers out and then they're like, oh, divide. But they're not quite sure if they divided correctly because they're not sure if they did 10 over 4 or 4 over 10, and then they're using your calculator, and then they could get 40 cents and not think about it, and that could look great, especially if it's multiple choice, and you do the wrong thing, and that wrong answer is there. So the idea here of this bar model also just reinforces, again, the sense of this number here, $10, and how it's related to this unit here of per pound, okay? So Marvin paid $2.50 per pound. What you're going to do now is, let's put the green cap on, the green marker. You're going to break off into your, well, you're already with your partners at your tables, so that's gravy. Again, I don't like gravy, but I say that's gravy all the time. And so it's all good, it's all gravy. And you're going to basically do exactly what we did here, but you're going to solve some more problems involving unit rates. And then you're going to put your answers in a table. And it might ask you to write it as a ratio of dollars to pounds, okay? And then it might ask you to simplify and try to come up with a shortcut instead of drawing the bar model. Again, we're practicing the bar model so we understand it, but at the end of the day, there is an algorithm, okay? There is, in this case, it's actually a one-step algorithm to finding a unit rate. So that's what you're going to explore, and there's some really, really great depth of knowledge questions that are, I like to consider high depth of knowledge, because you're going to have to compare and contrast and defend your reasoning and critique the reasoning of others. So enjoy the lab. You're going to analyze and apply. We already, launched the lab, and then we'll come back and B, brief. When we debrief, we'll talk about what we learned, what we discovered, any patterns that we noticed, and some other problems that we might be able to solve using this type of model and where it's connected to elsewhere. And I have some focus questions too that I'd like to ask you at the end of the lab. So let's enjoy our partners, and remember, we're collaborating. Okay, so we're sharing ideas, we're talking about it, communicating, we're using vocabulary such as per, unit, rate, etc. All right, let's have some fun.